If you are listening to my voice, you have probably missed a training session. I apologize for you having to listen to it this way, but at least this will get it taken care of. I am going to make a disclaimer that says I'm not going to correct all my misspeaks, so please forgive them as we go. The website has changed this year. We are now aspire.act.org. Please make sure that you are familiar with that website, and if you need access to it and cannot get in with your current password, please let me know and I will send another invitation to you. Some things have changed. The look of the portal has changed, so we need you to make sure that you are aware of those changes and are familiar with the portal. Preparation is much more labor intensive, so it does take longer for setup. Because of that, Ms. Trina is going to be doing more of the setup than I do, so it does take a little bit longer. Also, when a student transfers in, you can no longer pull a student up in the portal and see their previous scores from another school. So you'll have to get on Dashboard or something of that nature to see those scores. The Department of Elementary and Secondary Education has a few periodic policies that are the same, but we do need to go over those. If you're giving interims, you must give at least 2 of those. Math are the only ones that we are giving this year in grades 4 and 5. Classrooms, we have to give 5 across the grade level in order to meet the guidelines. Your interim assessments are untimed, but we are allowing 50 minutes for standard time, so if a student has time and a half, that will be taken into consideration. They are computer-based and multiple choice as before. The classroom assessments are available to all grades and all subjects. They are untimed and they are estimated to take about 15 minutes. You can, since they're untimed, give your students who need extended time extra time, but the computer does not do any kind of timing on those. If you're looking for the skills that are going to be assessed on each classroom, you can click this link, and that link will take you exactly to where you need to be in order to find the exact subject matter and the skills. So when you request a classroom to be given, you'll know which one to give. There are accommodations for the interims, but there are not accommodations for classrooms. Administration reminders that we need to make sure you follow all rules and protocols, even though they are done within the normal time frame of your lesson. We still need to be very mindful of the rules and protocols. Tests must be given by someone who meets the following criteria. They are English speaking, they are trained, they have classroom management or test administration experience. They must be employed by the school, so even if it's a certified sub, they cannot, and I repeat, cannot give your test, and your interns cannot give a test. You also cannot give this test to a relative or a hired consultant, so if you have your own child or a close relative, we will need to put them in a different session. I will give you the periodic security agreement that you will sign when you come to me and tell me that you have finished this training session. You will have to sign test in and out. In order to do classrooms, you will need to request. We are asking 2 weeks in advance because Ms. Trina is doing setup. It is possible she can get those done quicker, but it is not a guarantee. So the earlier you plan, the more likely you are to have it ready when you need it. Once the session is set up, you will be notified and you will print your tickets. Keep them secure until the test has been administrated. And then once you have given that test, at the end of that day, you can bring them to sign them into Ms. Miller, and she will then do the shredding. For math interims, these are going to be given during the normal math blocks for grades 4 and 5. On those days, Ms. Bartlett, Ms. Norwood, and Dr. Battles may not be following their normal schedule, so they can administer accommodated tests. Ms. Miller will print the tickets for interims. The teacher will sign the tickets out for the interim administration from the counselor's office, and the teacher will then bring them back and sign them in to Ms. Miller, who will shred the tickets. If there is an irregularity, then you will need to complete the form. There is one in the folder you will be given, and there is also one here if you need it. If an impropriety occurs, please make Ms. Miller aware of that immediately so we can get that documented and reported as it is needed. We do have a contingency plan in case we need it, in case of weather or anything else that comes up. There is a complete manual link here. You are free to read and look at this complete manual, and I suggest that you do that. I have pulled the specific instructions that you're going to need and have them included in the folder. If you lose them or need another copy, you can just use the link above. Test security and room supervisor responsibilities. ACT Aspire materials and questions cannot be duplicated, including handwritten, copied, photographed, resold, or redistributed in any way. ACT Aspire periodic tests must be administered by school or district personnel. ACT Aspire tickets and scratch paper must be checked out and checked back in the school test coordinator's office by using the chain of custody form. The teacher will initial out, I will initial in. The material is to be counted when initialing out and in. After tickets and scratch paper have been signed back in, they're to be shredded. Scratch paper is the back side of the ticket. However, if you need to give another student a piece of scratch paper, then please make sure that it is returned also. And again, you cannot give tests to a relative. If you give them any scratch paper, make sure that their first and last name, school name, test subject, school grade is all listed on that before it is shredded. Your responsibilities as the room supervisor are to read and understand the policies, procedures, and instructions, and you have the link to that full manual. Supervise the test room. You are going to be resuming tickets that students that get kicked out, so be familiar with what it looks like. I will start a test in the morning. You will then be allowed to resume throughout the day as you give these tests, and then once the ticket is turned into me, I will then complete the testing. You are to help students sign in on the online testing system. Please make sure you read students the instructions verbatim. Students have a tendency to skip right through this, but the closer you keep to the correct protocols at this point, the easier summatives will be, and also that is a testing irregularity if a student goes on ahead of you. Walk around the testing room making sure testing is being done correctly and observe their student behavior. Keep testing materials secure and collect all testing material to be signed back in. Monitor the online testing system as directed. Pay careful attention to monitoring student behavior. Collect and account for all authorization tickets and scratch paper before dismissing students, and then you can sign them back in at the end of the day. Ensure students have stopped testing and have correctly signed out of the online testing system. Complete your irregularity documentation. Never leave a test room unattended. Login tickets should be secure at all times, either with the test administrator or locked up. Test sessions must be started in the Aspire's portal before students can sign in to the test by the student testing coordinator. You should not read, correct papers, or do anything that is not related to administering the test. Have students turn cell phones off and placed in a designated end of the room. Interims, be sure to take them up and secure them. I'm going to pause here and just reiterate. You need to make sure that the cell phones are in a designated spot in the room. We will not be removing them from the room, but if you have them all in an area together, then that takes care of any possible violations that might occur. If a student has one on them and it were to go off, that's an impropriety and must be documented and must be reported to the State Department. No food or drink during tested unless documented in the student's accommodations, including adults. If a student has it, they can have water at their desk. Please put it on your desk and have them ask you for the water for everyone's protection. The monitors and the coordinators are not to be on phones unless it is testing related. You are welcome to text me, call me if you need to at any point. So I can come and help you out. My number is 479-790-7172. If you need me for any reason, I will be coming there as quickly as possible. Students are to complete the test in one setting unless the student gets sick or checks out early. If that occurs, please make sure that their test is properly stopped, and the instructions of how to do that is included in your folder. We have done an app check, so you don't have to worry about that. 2 or 3 days before the interim test for math only. You do need to cover and remove items that prompt or assist students on the test. Review the directions. Know what students receive accommodations and who can leave the room to receive those accommodations. Plug your Chromebooks to electrical sources inside and outside the cart and make sure they are ready for testing. One of the biggest changes to the portal is the P&Ps. For interim testing, the P&Ps, which is their IEP accommodation information, has been entered in. If students have any changes to their accommodations, we can change that prior to testing. But if not, then they're going to have to test with the accommodations that are there, and that needs to be taken care of immediately after testing. As of right now, everyone's IEP, 504, and P&P all are correct. But if anything needs to be changed, we need to know that as quickly as possible. It is very important these are right for summatives. On the test day, seat students where students cannot see other monitors. You may need to use privacy shields. Count and sign the authorization tickets from the testing coordinator if it's an interim. Keep the tickets secure with you or locked up. Verbal instructions must be read verbatim. Authorization tickets should be given to students when indicated in the directions, not before the testing. During testing, you should not read anything other than the manual, correct papers, or do anything not related to testing. You should move quietly around the room and be available to respond to the questions, assist in case of illness, check that examinees are working on the correct test, and assist them with technical or system navigational issues. You cannot read test questions, or students cannot have them read to them. You cannot prompt students to help in any way. You cannot guide their answers. Most questions should be answered. Do your best. Read the question. Pick your best answer. If a student believes the question does not have a correct answer, ask them the page number. This is written in the black banner on the student's computer screen. Example 3 of 25 is where this is, and place it on the irregularity form. During periodics, students should not have to leave the room. If it's an emergency, only one examinee may leave the testing room at a time. If the student has an accommodation and to go on supervised break, then you need to cover their screen or stop and restart their tests. If they have that students have the accommodation. If a student has an emergency and they do not have this accommodation, then just cover their screen and allow them to walk out. Follow the resume instructions upon their return. You have the instructions in your folder for all of these things. For either situation, collect the authorization ticket and scratch paper before that student leaves the room. Examinees are not allowed to have cell phones or any electronic communication devices on their persons. Be sure to watch for smartwatches because those are way more prevalent now. For interims, cell phone and electronic devices should be turned off and not on the student. Backpacks and personal items should be placed in the hallway. For classroom tests, cell phones and electronic devices should be turned off and placed in a designated spot by the teacher. Teachers' electronic devices and phones should be off. Cell phones should be used only for obtaining information on the testing from your testing coordinator. After each test session, collect all student authorization testing tickets and scratch paper from the examinee before allowing them to leave the test room. Count to be sure you received all the tickets. Document any testing regularities that occurred during the testing sessions and provide to the testing coordinator. Ensure that all computers used for testing are signed out of TestNav. Keep the student tickets and scratch papers secure until given to the student testing coordinator, who will securely destroy this material and document on the chain of custody form. The school testing coordinator will sign material back in before destroying it. In the portal, text-to-speech should be there. Interims are there for math and science. Classrooms, they are not available in the portal. This should help you to understand the times a little bit better. For interims, standard time is around 50 minutes, so we have allowed 75 minutes at time and a half, 200% at 110 minutes, and 300% at 150 minutes.